Well, I think the poll suggests that 7 out of 10 people saw that as a positive speech, and I think almost everyone found that much more presidential than the usual speeches that we hear from Donald Trump, especially compared to inauguration. So I think there's an element of deja vu here, because if you remember here in the Philippines, although you had the reverse order, the inauguration speech by President Duterte was very much subdued and somber, and then the State of the Nation address was a little bit different. So in the case of U.S., you had a reversal here. But I think nonetheless, a lot of people, including Democrats, a lot of critics of Mr. Trump, gave him credit for striking a different tone. If you look at his preparation for the speech, I think there were also some interesting details there. Apparently, Trump went through 17 to 18 pages of his speech, in the days prior to presenting it. This time he really prepared and he was really disciplined. And apparently he took hours just to go through the first paragraph of his speech. So we're now seeing a different Trump, a Trump that is apparently paying attention, that apparently is willing to read and listen to his staff and aide. I think they wanted to really make a point that Trump can transform, that Trump can be presidential, and he can reach out across the political bridge and try to bring in Democrats. I think it was very strategic for Mr. Trump to involve a lot of Americans in the drama of his speech. You had a lot of African Americans who he cited who were able to rise out of poverty because of voucher programs and alternatives mechanisms for them to get scholarship for education. There was a mention of an African American teenager, and his father was in attendance in the Congress, who was a victim of some illegal immigrant who murdered him. So he tried to involve the majority of the American people. So definitely this was a different kind of Trump that we have seen
let me kind of challenge you on that, Richard, because this type of speech was really necessary at this point, because his first days of the administration were very controversial. So I think part of the strategy there was to take the distraction off of those controversies, the national security advisor resigning, right, ties to Russia. These are things, media, the fight with the media, these were all things that were, I think his administration were kind of, annoyed with that noise. So this was really what he needed to do. And as you said, it is part of that strategy. Do you think it's a one-off instance then that this speech was supposed to just kind of show this type of Trump, but then he'll just go back to business as usual today and ongoing?
Well, I mean, first of all, they have a problem in the polls, right? Trump has come into in his office with the lowest rating of any newly appointed, newly inaugurated president. And even prior to this speech, his numbers were hovering between 44 to 47%, depending on different polls that you're looking at. I look at the polls at NBC and Wall Street Journal. So he has very low poll approval ratings, and that's not going to help you in terms of your mandate. So this speech really was important for him to expand his base and deal with those horrible poll numbers, not to mention the roller coaster weeks that he has had. I don't know. I mean, a part of me feels that we saw also a much more humbled Trump. I think when the courts struck down his very controversial, quote-unquote, Muslim travel ban, and you had this massive organized protest across the country, I think that made him realize that he's not a CEO of a company. He's a president of a democracy whereby you have checks and balances, and he needs to get the Democrats and some of the critical Republicans, including people like Senator McCain, on his side if he wants to really push forward with his very ambitious agenda that is very much focused on restricting immigration to America, making it more merit-based, making it more similar to Australia and Canada and other countries. And of course, his agenda for trade actually runs counter to the ideology of majority of Republican Party members who are pro-free trade, while as far as Trump is concerned, he sometimes sounds more like Bernie Sanders and progressive and leftist people because he talks about fair trade. So I think he realized that he has to expand his base, and looking a little bit more presidential will definitely not hurt him. But I must tell you, we must warn our friends in the U.S. that definitely this could be just a one-off speech, and he could very much go back to the usual Trump that we're familiar with. And let's be fair, the reason why we are so impressed apparently by his speech is because now we're adopting a Trump benchmark. I mean, I think by normal yardstick, that was not still the best speech that you could hear. I think that was not the most articulate or eloquent speech. But by Trump standards, that was definitely
that
an
is
improvement.
an interesting point.
But people will want to see follow through. People to see follow through. Definitely, I think this is not enough to, to appease or mollify the huge amount of criticism and huge amount of concern that has been raised across the country. You had no less than former President George W. Bush in the past few days giving a series of interviews saying he has huge reservation with the wave of racism that is, sweeping across the country, including the incidents in Kansas when you had, I think, a person of South Asian heritage being targeted and killed.